Three, two, one, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from three Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is season 3, and in case you haven't noticed, we are still riding high on the wave of all those good high fantasy awesomeness that we're getting recently, especially Lord of the Rings. If you listen to our last episode, we did a little retrospective of the original 3 films just to get ready to the premiere of the Rings of Power that we know Goose was extra excited about because we know that you took it as, you know, a birthday present
gift
for you.
Yes.
So, you know,
birthday weekend.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
I appreciate it. It goes without saying that, like,
what a birthday present it was, though.
It was done for me exclusively. So thank you. I'm not gonna thank Jeff Bezos because he's a piece of shit. You know, we don't support billionaires in this house, especially horrible people like him. But the creatives that did this show definitely did it for me. So
yeah,
all of those other people that are enjoying the show, you're welcome.
Don't worry that we've been a little low on Star Wars content. We're coming with some really cool stuff
there's a lot coming
next week and onwards. But we really do want to talk about the premiere of the Rings of Power. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the actual episodes,
potatoes.
Well, it was extra helpings of everything good. But before we get into that, we kind of wanted to discuss all the vitriol that the series has been getting because they're being diverse. Especially as a podcast that we promote inclusion, diversity in all forms. And I personally really enjoyed seeing this diversity. I want even more diversity, but even with what we've got, I thought it was really good. And I can't believe people are hating on this. So I think we should discuss this before we get into the actual show.
Yeah. It's one of those things that seem like every time you think you're done having this discussion about like,
being inclusive and diverse,
fake worlds and like how diverse people factor into representation. You just have to have the same stupid, ridiculous conversation all over again, and it's just very, very pathetic. And at this point, it's almost boring if it weren't so dangerous, honestly, because it's rhetoric that like if you are applying these type of things like to fantasy worlds that don't even matter and like take it as seriously as some people do. It's kind of disconcerting, like how it will translate to the real life and like how you view real situations. So
and
it's
how you treat real people.
Well, exactly, because it's like people like to think that media lives in its own little island and it doesn't matter the things that it does. But no, because media ultimately ends up being a mirror to like the life that we live and the things that we do. And if the media that you're consuming is media that's only giving you one flavor of something, then that's what you're going to be hardwired to kind of think and feel and look things through. It's only that point of view. So representation and other points of view in media are extremely important. And one thing, I mean, it's going to sound kind of weird, but one thing that's kind of a silver lining of all this thing is that it's kind of making Star Wars fans not look terrible. I am not saying that the Star Wars fandom is good. It is not. It's a crappy fandom too. I mean, we try to be
with exceptions.
Like,
there's a lot of exceptions out there.
There's the majority. The majority, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm being hyperbolic,
vocal,
obviously.
The verbal fandom usually is kind of terrible. Yes.
But they're making like everything that's happened in the Star Wars community pale
Tolkien
in
nerds
comparison.
are looking extra bad right now.
They're looking
terrible.
They're looking bad. And it's weird and it's pathetic and it's sad at the end of the day to like all of these worlds are meant to be beautiful and they're always been meant to be inclusive, because once you write a story, it's out for the world to consume it. And especially when there's stories like this that are about like good versus evil and about hope, about coming together to defeat a common enemy. It's sad to then see people take those things and start gatekeeping them in toxic ways that then perverse it, you know, and turns it into something ugly and evil and exclusionary, right?
Well, and especially considering that in Middle Earth and everything that has to do with Lord of the Rings, there are different races, but you add people of color and then that makes it different. I mean, it's
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm taking this one personal because, we're a podcast from 3 Puerto Rican friends
Right.
coming together to talk about Lord of the Rings and other learned media.
And we have an amazing Puerto
obviously,
Rican actor.
We have an amazing Puerto Rican actor, Ismael Cruz
Great
Cordova, on
actor.
this show, who's
He's
been
so
killing
good.
it. Who's been killing.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But like we have one of our own, Afro Latino, Afro Puerto Rican there, like representing us, representing the island. It's like such a beautiful thing for me to see, see myself. I mean, I'm not Afro Latino, but like I'm Puerto Rican, and like to see a Puerto Rican on the screen, it's just like, wow, like it's powerful.
Yeah, it's sympathetic.
It's powerful. It means that not only are we part of that world, but also we can become part of that world if we strive for it, because he's fighting for his dreams and he made it. He's in Lord of the Rings right now, so any of us could do it. So it's inspiring, and people that don't understand the power that has are in a position of privilege. That's just very telling of where
especially young children that are growing up watching this and can see themselves now in more of the media that back then they couldn't see themselves at all.
Yeah.
So this
100%.
is very powerful and very forward moving, and that people want to take 10 steps back and are insulted by diversity boggles the mind, honestly.
Well,
it's quite upsetting that we have to live with this nowadays. And but saying that, like, I'm gonna say that the Harfoots, which are also hobbits, they are technically browner in skin. So I mean,
it's in the text.
They're
it's been there before.
So it's quite upsetting. I just don't understand why it's something that it should be like, eliminated. It's something to have fun to, like,
right. That's the disappointing thing of all these things. It's like, and why I say, like, I've written on Twitter a couple of times that it's just boring at this point because it's predictable. And the minute that you can tell, like, why you're criticizing things the way you're criticizing them, because it's obviously politically motivated to an extent, because you come from a political ideology that is against quote unquote wokeness, that, whatever that means. If it means that, like, we are advocating for representation, that's not a bad thing. That's the world we live in. Sorry if, like, you feel offended that people that look different from you are being part in the stories that are told for everybody, because guess what? That has been the history of colonialism. Everyone else that looks different having to absorb the stories of that minority group that's pushing it down. So sorry that now we just want a little equity, not even equality. It's just, we want both, I guess. So it's boring. They do the same thing every time, to, like, not even take the story at face value and, like, just enjoy it for what it is, just to break it down for outside factors that have nothing to do with the story itself, and always target it at the same people. It's sad, it's pathetic, and all those people that can't enjoy a show because they saw a brown face or a black face, they need to go outside and get a hobby or ride their bike or enjoy life, because clearly
just stop being so hateful, honestly. If you don't like it, stop watching it, but stop hating on it.
You sound like a racist, and you sound like a bigot,
and you probably are a racist and a bigot.
Take a look.
Accept
in the mirror. Take a look in the mirror. That's all I'm gonna say. If you accept cave trolls and you accept dwarves and mythical and Istari and Maiar and the Valar and all that, and the Silmarils and, like, all this fucking shit that doesn't exist, you can accept that there's people with skin tones that just happen
are
to
different to
live
yours.
in a group in a world that actually is a pluralistic world that has not only different races of men, but have different races, period. Elves, dwarves, Harfoots, hobbits. Like, you can deal with it. You're a big boy. You're a big person. Sorry, like, you're supposed to deal with it. And I understand if you can't deal with it in real life, and that's why you're projecting into fantasy. But it's sad. It's pathetic. It's 2022. Maybe it's time to
get a new hobby. Well, I think that is enough of our little ranting against hate.
It's important to rant.
It is important to rant, but we
gotta rage against hate.
Talk about rage against the bigots definitely. But we do want to talk about Lord of the Rings from an angle of love, because there's a lot of good things.
There is a lot of love.
And there's a lot of people that are genuinely enjoying it. Yeah. So I think, Goose, you were the one looking forward to it the most. So I would like to start with you. First impression.
First impression, as you said, like, this was my birthday gift. So this is the thing that I was most excited.
Of course, it was very personal.
It was very personal.
It was made for you.
Of course.
It was made for me. And I saw the show not right when it came out, because I was actually out with some friends, because it was one of my coworkers' last day at the office. I'm like, okay, gotta do this, because then I gotta fucking go watch Rings of Power. And it was everything I could have hoped for and more. Like, the show blew my mind. It was everything I wanted the show to be. It had like all the like magic of Lord of the Rings. The visuals were spectacular. The acting was great. Like, the story, just I was in. I thought the prologue was gonna hook me in a little better than like it did, because I was reading good things about the prologue, and not to say that it was bad, but I thought the prologue was gonna be a little more powerful in terms of like framing the Second Age and the battle with Morgoth. But at that point, I didn't know that Amazon doesn't have the rights to the Silmarillion, so they can't. So they can't adapt everything. So obviously that, well, which to me it doesn't ultimately matter, because it's an adaptation. It's not going to be the same as the book, right? So that's fine.
And I didn't read the Silmarillion either, so I don't really care.
So ultimately it's fine, because like I'd rather just have a good story than a bad adaptation, just because you're trying to cram everything in. But it was wonderful. I loved Galadriel. I love Elrond, like Durin and Disa. I mean,
we're the best.
That dwarf couple, they killed me. And obviously I have to like give the massive kudos to like our homeboy, our Puerto Rican homeboy, Ismael Cruz, because Arondir, even though that was a brand new character for the show and I didn't know what to expect from it, absolutely crushed it. Like, his performance was brilliant, and I have nothing but good things to say about the show so far. I don't want to like pit it up against House of the Dragon, because I think I'm liking House of the Dragon too. But it's just
it's better.
It's captivating.
It's better. It's better.
It was beautiful.
What did you think, Joanne?
Well, first impressions. Going back a little with the inclusive part, Amazon Prime did a good job, like including a lot of languages. Like I was looking throughout, and there were many languages, and so they did a good job with that. So first impressions, I love the series. I want to see more. Definitely, like comparing it to the actual movies of the Lord of the Rings is not the same, obviously, but it's something to look out. And there are many stops, like you get informed from the past, so that you can better understand like new stuff that you didn't knew. So but yeah, I love the series. It's highly recommended on my so first impressions are quite great. I don't want to compare it also, but
but you can't help it. You can't help it.
Comparison is inevitable, because
it's healthy. It's healthy as long as it's
coming
fun,
out at the same time. Yeah.
It's like Star Wars versus Star Trek. It's just like, it's fun. Just as long as as long as we keep it fun, comparisons are okay. But let's not be toxic about it.
Oh, and comparing to The Hobbit, this series is better than The Hobbit.
Oh, way better than The Hobbit. Oh, definitely. Agreed. 100%.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do another episode for The Hobbit.
So if you were disappointed with The Hobbit, then you don't have to be disappointed
with this. Series. Yeah, agreed.
Oh, yep.
Nani, what about you? I'm very curious. I have avoided texting you all weekend. Well, I know you were at the beach, so like I didn't obviously bother you on vacation. But I also didn't want to know your opinion, because actually, for everyone listening, we usually text each other to know what we're thinking about everything. So usually we kind of know where everyone's gonna come at when we're talking about these reviews. But this is the first time, Rings of Power, that we haven't ever texted each other. So that we're actually, for the first time, blank slate, actually knowing what everyone thinks. This is exciting. So Nani.
This is exciting. So I really liked it. I really enjoyed, like you said, that prologue didn't have the oomph that the original one did, but I really loved that it was still Galadriel doing it. So that was like an awesome nod to the original film. So I was like into it from that point on. We got that first vision of Valinor, and which was just so amazing. I mean, right off the bat, you feel, the scope of the original ones. Like it feels like you really are back in the world of Tolkien and Middle Earth. I've heard people complain that it doesn't sound like Tolkien. I completely disagree. I feel it's the opposite. It sounds like Tolkien, like the way the lines are expressed. I think the script is fantastic. I think the emotion behind the characters, like it's, and as I've always appreciated, if you've listened to us before, show, don't tell. So a lot of the emotions just come through with the performance of the actors. You don't have to like, spill it out constantly, like explain, oh, I am angry, I kind of hate it when they do that. And they've been really good at expressing that through the amazing acting of, I think it's incredibly well cast, aside from obviously all the love for our Puerto Rican, brother out there. But
we're biased, but we're right.
Yeah. Elrond, I still haven't bought completely.
Oh, really?
Honestly. I don't know why.
Because he doesn't have long hair, or because he's not,
I don't know. Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving. He still has like a weird complexion. So I'm like, okay, they cast someone that like looks weird.
Yeah, which is good. But there's something obviously.
And I mean weird in a very loving way.
Of course. Because I love it when people don't look exactly the same. I love it when that happens. But I don't know. It's something about, because it's so far back in the past, and you already have this image of Elrond being like,
he's not Elrond,
one of the elf lords, is one of the possessors, one of the 3 rings of power of the elves and everything. But Galadriel, I completely buy from the beginning. Like she's been amazing from the start, and I love seeing her like full on warrior mode. So, as opposed to wise leader, which she will eventually become, but being like hot-headed warrior, controlled by her emotions, is really cool to see in the elves. So I think it's taking it in really good directions of races that were already kind of very well established by the Third Age, and now they're still kind of, young. And honestly, that first episode, though, as much as I loved it, didn't like immediately hook me as much as I thought. But episode 2, and especially when you were talking about Druin and his wife and Disa, and not just them as a couple, which was just, it was the most adorable thing in the world. But to see Casa Dune in that way, because I had mentioned when we talked about Lord of the Rings that one of my favorite places to see was, those mines of Moria. But in Lord of the Rings, it's basically a tomb. And to see it alive
in all its glory. Oh my God.
Oh my God. And it's, it's underground, but it's the water and the trees and the vitality of the dwarves, and, at their height, which obviously we'll get into it. It's the beginning of their end, because clearly they have just found Mithril, but it was so amazing to see. I was like, wow. And the fact that they're not even referring to it as like the mines of Moria, it's like, oh, we're going to Casa Dune and all these things. And we're still seeing that there's a friendship between an elf and a dwarf, but that it's already starting to like fragment.
Fray a little bit.
Yeah. And how that will eventually lead to them just being mortal enemies. I think it's a good framing for storytelling. So you're already invested, and there's characters that were created just for the show, so we know nothing about them. So we're kind of tied into their journey as well. And since it's so far removed from the Third Age, we have no idea. I mean, that the stranger character, who's clearly a wizard, but we don't know.
Maybe not. We can talk about theories.
There's theories.
We can talk about theories.
Okay, but
I mean, I think it is a wizard. But let's not.
Let's see what's out
ourselves.
there. But honestly, I really, really enjoyed it. I think the soundtrack is not as good as in the films.
Interesting.
I don't think it's as good.
I don't know if it's as good as the rest of the films. I haven't heard the whole thing, but like that's one of the things that actually captivated me. And like I'm actually not the best at like being aware of the music because I'm looking at visuals. I'm more of a visual person. But one of the things I was like really aware of while watching the show was the score. Like the score for me was actively in my mind while I was watching all the visuals. And it was so compelling to me. I was just like, wow, it really stood out to me. I was like, wow, this soundtrack is amazing. Like I need to listen to it after the show is over.
I mean, the opening song was fantastic. Like the theme song for the show.
You know who composed
Howard Shore, of course.
Howard Shore, the original, the OG.
It was fantastic. I thought the intro sequence was a little derivative because I thought it was trying to be at the Game of Thrones, but with like sand and stuff. So it was a little, It
was cool, but we've seen it before.
Like they
could have like Daredevil with the blood and like Game of Thrones.
I mean, I feel like especially when they're doing something so just incredibly well done, they could have, find a way to make it a little bit more original, I guess. But that is just a tiny pet peeve because that's just the opening sequence. It doesn't matter.
But it looks good.
But one reason that I think the soundtrack hasn't resonated with me so far is because it's more kind of like background, kind of accentuating the scenes, which is good in certain shows. But one of the things that I thought was genius about Lord of the Rings is that it created themes for like each race, for each place. So just by hearing some of the strings, you knew where you were, and it brought back that feeling. And I mean, the Lord of the Rings soundtrack is a soundtrack that I used to listen to like while I was studying because it kind of brought me peace. And so as compared to the one now, I'm not saying that it doesn't work well for the show. I'm just saying it's not as good as the original soundtrack. Just
wait till the show's over. Wait till the show.
Okay. This is initial impressions. I'm talking about 2 episodes. Okay, I can't be critical of those 2 episodes.
Yes, you can.
Yes,
I am biased. Setting up the setting. So
they're starting to, especially because Joanne, that you are like a fan of the Shire, and the Shire, your favorite places.
The Shire.
Yeah, and at this point, it's
and
the
Harfoots. The Shire.
And at this point, you have the Harfoots who are nomads. So it's not the same as that homey Shire feel, even though as nomads they still have that family unit kind of homey. You want to like hang out with them and have dinner with them.
Right.
I love Nori. Nori's fantastic.
It's definitely not the same, but at least there were some hobbits called Harfoots, which, like you said, they're nomads, and I loved Nori. I have to say that I loved her.
Yes, she is wonderful.
But I mean, it's interesting that I had to look that up, like what kind of like hobbits are there, and there are like 3 types of hobbits, and but I definitely loved the Harfoot, and I loved how Nori acted on that. So yeah, definitely. It's and even you haven't seen the Lord of the Ring, this is a great series like you could start off.
You don't really need to have the background,
right? And it's llevadero, like it's
easygoing.
It's easygoing. Like you don't have to know a character like Galadriel or something like that.
To be able to follow
it, and maybe hopefully by the end you would like to watch Lord of the Rings.
Watch Lord of the Rings,
or read the books and read the Silmarillion,
or read the books,
or Unfinished Tales and all that crap. I mean, that's the great thing about these things, which I don't understand why some people are so against about. It's not a faithful adaptation. It's just like whatever. I mean, that's relative to whoever's interpreting the adaptation, I guess. But if it makes people connect with the story and it makes someone want to know more about it and then like delve into the books and all the other stuff, isn't that a positive for that world? Like you're increasing book sales and people being interested in Middle Earth and all that stuff. I mean, it's always going to be a good thing to like have an adaptation that, as long as it's a good story and it engages people and inspires them to want to live in that world, it keeps the lore alive for everybody. I mean, I guess some people maybe don't want it to be alive because they want to own it and be like, no, this is mine and it's not for other people, which is ridiculous in my mind. But whatever. But speaking about like keeping lore worlds alive, I mean, I think that's one of the really good things that the show was able to still capture from the Peter Jackson and the PJ movies. It's like the scope, right? Because and again, not to pit it against Game of Thrones because House of Dragon, Game of Thrones is doing something different, right?
Yeah.
But Game of Thrones sometimes feels like I don't want to say like a small world because obviously Game of Thrones is a large world, but the grandeur of landscapes and locales isn't comparable to Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings and as Lord of the Rings, you see Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King. It's about New Zealand, right? It's a tourism advertisement. It's like these are the landscapes of New Zealand, and it's beautiful. And this is Rivendell, and this is Minas Tirith, and and Casa Doom, and it's just like there's this epicness of scope of like of not just like buildings but nature that just makes it awe-inspiring. And Game of Thrones doesn't really have that because that's not the vibe that they're going for.
And even those few minutes or like 1 minute we have of the battle, and it feels very immersive and it feels grand.
Yes, like it captures that. It's just like it. Oh, and when they're I forget because it's the Region, I think is the name of the city, the first elven city that we see, and it's just like all the trees are just like all the leaves are falling all the time, constantly. I'm just like, yes, it just feels real. It just feels real. And magical and alive, and it's just like gave me all the chills I got when I saw Fellowship of the Ring the first time, and we saw Rivendell for the first time. Just like this beautiful elven city. It's just like it blew my mind. It blew my mind, and it captured that epic scope that the original films had, and I just can't wait to see more, especially with Casa Doom. I agree with you 100%, Nani. It was just a completely different way to see something we've already seen from a completely different perspective. But I think the most important part of Casa Doom is not just the landscape, because everything looks cool, but the important thing is the story, right? And I think the cool thing about Moria and Casa Doom was the depiction of dwarves, because I think one of the big things I was complaining, because we were pretty kind to the Lord of the Rings when we were talking about it last week. But one of my biggest complaints about Lord of the Rings was the depiction of Gimli and the dwarves, which is kind of like they're a joke, and they're kind of don't take it seriously. As the movies go, he becomes even more jokey, and it's like, okay, well, we like why can't he just be cool too? I mean, he can be comedic relief and not be, and also be as cool as Legolas. But this show kind of like really grounded them and made them cool again. It's just like one of my favorite characters now is Durin and Disa. I mean, like giving them that depth and personality, I thought was one of the things that were really lacking from Gimli's portrayal in Lord of the Rings. And I feel that this show in just one episode compensated 100% for all of that.
For the dwarves,
loved it.
Yeah.
And actually, you said something interesting, because I want to see everyone's theory on this, because I agree with you, Nani, that I think that's the most
probably
likely
Mithril.
thing.
Yeah, it could be other stuff. Yeah,
but what's in the box?
I know.
my initial thought was that it was the Arkenstone, but technically, I haven't read The Hobbit, so like I don't know how the sequence of discovery went. But technically, in the Hobbit movies, they discover the Arkenstone while mining for Mithril, so they can't. If they keep to that, they can't discover the Arkenstone if they don't have Mithril yet. So it makes sense that it would be Mithril, but it could
or maybe they already had Mithril, they just hadn't talked about it, so it could still be the Arkenstone.
Another wild one I had, and I don't know so everyone's gonna agree with this one. I don't think this is the case, but maybe they have one of the Silmarils that like Celebrimbor was talking about, or a scene before. So I was like, okay. So I don't know. I think that's the most unlikely of the three theories. I don't know, Joanne, what do you think? Is it the Arkenstone? Is it Mithril? Or is it one of the Silmarils?
I think it's the Arkenstone.
Really?
It kind of makes sense for it to. I think the Silmaril is too out there. I just threw it out because you have to have the wild card. You have to have something that's probably not true. But the Arkenstone, I don't know. The glow kind of looked to me like it was kind of like an Arkenstone-y glow from The Hobbit. So. But I don't know. I'm more convinced with
I don't know. I have to say that I really don't know.
Well, my first instinct as soon as they opened the box was, Mithril, and Husbando was like, it's probably the Arkenstone. So there's conflicting. Okay. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that in the previews for like the next episode, you got a little image of the Balrog, which makes me think that it's Mithril because they dug too deep.
Too deep. No, but it's too early. It's too early for them to get into trouble.
It is too early. I know, but I don't know. It could be a premonition of it.
I would imagine, because obviously, not obviously, But from what we know, at least let's just talk about the films, right? Let's not talk even about the books, because everyone's threshold with the books varies. Even mine, like I read them, but by no means an expert on anything. But from my understanding, like once they were digging for Mithra for a long time before they tempted the fates, and then the Balrog showed up and and ruined everything for everybody. So I think they have 5 seasons. So I think the Balrog,
but it could be like a premonition of that. This is what leads to their demise.
And we do know that there's going to be a Balrog in this season, because they already spoiled it. But I think it's still too early to tell if like this is the end. I hope it's not the end of Khazad-dûm, because we just got there.
Yeah,
I know.
I want to spend a little more time.
I would love to have all those rivers and stuff in my home.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
I want
design my home to look like that.
I want a vacation home in all of those
in Rivendell, and then
I want Rivendell, one in Khazad-dûm, one in Numenor. Because when I was watching the previews for the next episode, all of a sudden they show that we're gonna go to Numenor, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm looking forward to it. Like a Minas Tirith island, that's awesome. Like the show is hitting on all cylinders for me. I'm bursting with joy. This is what I wanted from like all these shows. Is just to make me happy. I wanted to feel emotions, as positive ones. And like this show is doing it. It's doing it. So yeah. Sorry, I got this.
You're blushing.
I am blushing.
He is so happy.
I'm in love. One thing that I was looking at when they were when Elrond was talking with Celebrimbor, and like he had oh my god, Fëanor's hammer. I was just like, they should make a replica about that, because I want to buy it immediately and just put it somewhere like in the cupboard, maybe next to my Indiana Jones idol here, so I can have like Indiana Jones and Fëanor's hammer, because it looked so beautiful. I was just like, just make it. We will buy it. Make it. I already have an Amazon Prime account. I'm gonna buy it. Come on, just give it to me. But going back to something else, we already theorized a little bit about what was in the box, in Khazad-dûm, but now we have to theorize about something else, and it's the stranger. I think that's what everyone has been talking about. I think they call him, what's the other name they have for him? Meteor Man or Meteor Man, I think is what they're also calling him. I think everyone has like the main theory.
Yeah.
Which is
Gandalf.
Spoiler alert, Gandalf. Gandalf the Grey. But I think there could be more things to it. So okay, so I guess everyone here thinks it's Gandalf.
No, I think it could also be Saruman.
See, that was. I thought it could be either Saruman, obviously Gandalf, because that's what they want you to think. Yeah. Which is why I don't think it's. This is why, like, I'm hoping it's not Gandalf, because Gandalf is too easy. So I think there's.
But he also spoke to the la luciérnaga.
Fireflies.
Fireflies, yeah. So I was in doubt with that, because Gandalf also speaks with the moth. So,
but there's another wizard that also talks to animals, and that's Radagast the Brown. So
and he's like the more natural, the more nature focused one is.
But I mean, he's not that tall.
Well, next to a Harfoot, everyone's a giant, right?
True. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's a wild card. Here's the wild card. It's Sauron. It's like he just sent himself in a new body, and he's trying to like.
I mean, it could be, because one of the things that was bothering me.
Saruman?
Sauron.
I mean, Saruman is also a theory. It could make sense because he's the first wizard.
Yeah. So I think because Saruman was supposed to be like a good guy for the longest time until he became corrupted, but I thought the fact that he kills the fireflies in the process of using his magic kind of pokes towards that darkness. So it could be Saruman. Initially, as soon as I saw him fall, I thought it was Gandalf. Like Gandalf has a connection to the hobbits. So it all makes sense.
That's why it's too easy.
Yeah,
that's why I'm just like,
easy.
it can't be. Yeah.
And the Sauron thing, now that you mention it, actually kind of makes sense to me because I was kind of bothered in the prologue when you immediately know that Sauron is already a bad guy. Because at this point, I thought that you weren't supposed to know that he was a bad guy because he was involved in the forging of the rings. Like he later made the One Ring in secret, but he played a part in the original ones, and that's how he was able to tie them to the One Ring. So I was like, if they already knew that he was a bad guy, like how did they let him be a part of the process of forging the ones?
Well,
so
according to lore, because Sauron comes in a different
form, yeah,
and like fools Celebrimbor into basically
thinking.
the
Actually,
big project that Celebrimbor wants to do.
Not completely fooling Celebrimbor, actually, because he makes the 3 elven rings without Sauron's help. What he didn't know is that the process of making them to begin with already influences them in some way. So he wasn't completely fooled, but it does make sense for then to Sauron now come in as like a good guy and immerses himself in the world. So I kind of like that theory.
Because one of the names for Sauron is Sauron the Deceiver. So what better way to Sauron deceive people is to first deceive himself, right? Like basically, wipe his memory, come in as a new person, like, oh, look at this nice guy helping everybody, but then all the One Ring thoughts come into boil.
Well, and then we have this little conundrum of obviously Sauron went into hiding. Everybody thinks he's gone. He's not a threat anymore. The king decreed the end of the war officially, and nobody is to meddle. But then he makes that comment to Elrond that Galadriel's continued involvement might lead to the return of Sauron. So
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Basically. Yeah, which is really cool. So is it because she ends up not going back to Valinor and tries to follow him, somehow triggers the return to, I don't know. So I think
do you think like, so the fireflies actually died, so you're thinking more like because they died, it could be Sauron then,
because also. It's
I mean, so in part.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be that either.
And what do you think? I'm sorry?
What did you think,
What do you think about the constellation? What would it mean? Like
maybe for me, the constellation, maybe it's just like, well,
I think it's directions. This is where you have to take me.
Where the elves are. And it's just like, oh, I have to go and help Celebrimbor forge the Rings of Power. Maybe not.
So it could be that.
Maybe it's Gandalf, like, oh, that's where Sauron is and I have to defeat him. It could be either,
Yeah. And for me, Joanne, what you asked about the fact that they killed it, it's because there's like a dark side to the magic, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the caster is dark, because even Gandalf himself, when he, dies at the hands of the Balrog and then resurrects as Gandalf the White, he doesn't really remember who he is.
Right.
And who his friends are and how to comport himself. So it could still be Gandalf and he just doesn't know the extent of his power and he killed them by mistake. So you can still go either way with the theories. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad guy or not, but
shit.
Could be. I mean, it's interesting because I didn't thought about Siren, because like at the beginning of the series, like we could see like Sauron. They after Mordor, they explain about Sauron. So like I don't know. I didn't imagine it that way. I thought it would be like a wizard, maybe Gandalf, maybe.
I think it most likely is Gandalf. I mean, because the one part, like besides the fireflies, that kind of sold it to me, it's like when he's yelling at Nori, he does the exact same thing that Gandalf does in Fellowship of the Ring. Do not take me for a cheap counter of cheap. Like the whole world like turns dark and like the wind and the voice changes, and I'm like, okay, well, I mean, come on. But that's why I'm just like red herring. I'm just like, that's a red herring.
Except, I mean, if they're following lore, but they don't have, access to the Silmarillion, so they could be changing the lore. I'm pretty sure the wizards weren't sent to Middle Earth until the Third Age.
You are correct.
And we're in the Second Age, so.
You are correct. Yeah. But again, like, I don't mind if they change the story. I think it's going to be
I don't mind either.
Because then you don't know what to expect.
Then we don't know.
So like, so I don't know. It'd be cool if it were Saruman too, because it's like, oh, you get to see Saruman as a good guy.
I'll buy it too.
Yeah, as a good guy.
As a good guy. Who was it that said like, oh, not everything that was evil was always thus, or something like that? So it's like, well, see the beginnings of a character when like they were actually pure and good, and wanted to like defeat evil and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that could be a good twist. It's actually Saruman the White, and he's here. It's not Gandalf. It's like, screw all you theorists.
It's
like,
Saruman.
It's Saruman, and Saruman's a good guy. Which I'm good for. I'm just like, okay, I'm here for this. Let's watch Saruman kick some ass as a good guy.
I'm good with that too. I'm good with any of the three of them being it, really. I think Gandalf would be too easy, but I would still love to see Gandalf because hello, Gandalf.
I think Radagast is the most boring one. She's like, okay, I don't want to see you bobsledding with rabbits. That was enough. Like that one time was enough.
That's enough. Definitely.
Poop on your head. That's one thing. I'm just like, I understand the creative choices behind the design for Radagast. I'm like, really? Like, you really approve the design where he just has like caked poop on the side of his head?
Like,
I understand why.
You could have done a little better.
I have to say, he actually looked good on him.
He could pull it off, Joanne. He could pull it off.
That would be his.
Pull it off also.
That would be his picture on his Tinder profile. That's
That's
his good side.
But I have to say that when this theoretical Gandalf or Sauron, like when he came to Middle Earth, I thought it was Terminator for a second.
Right.
It was very reminiscent. That's true. With even the orb shape and everything.
Yeah, the orb. Yep.
I wonder. I'm actually watching Rings of Power.
It's just like all the fandoms just coming together in this show. All of a sudden, X-wing's gonna come down and blow something
up. And then
I
was wondering why it wasn't hot. Because
I think it might be something about the magic of it. That it's like an otherworldly magic.
No, but they talk about it in episode 1. It's just like they say when they're like at Sauron's fortress, like one of the elves says, like, oh,
you're
like
right.
this heat doesn't feel hot, and Galadriel's like, oh, because the evil here, like it sucks out all the heat, all the life out of things.
So that's Sauron even more.
That's why Sauron, maybe because it's just like, oh, if the fire's not burning you, it's because he's sucking it away. I don't know.
Would you guys be like Nori? Helping out this stranger out of the blue?
Out of the goodness of your heart, yeah. Because if you're good, she doesn't know, so she's innocent and pure.
Well, and not only is she good because she's definitely doing it because she sees somebody who's hurt and she wants to help. But there's also that side of Nori which goes into like a lot of the themes in Lord of the Rings, which is why I can't fathom why people think it doesn't seem like it's Tolkien. This need for adventure and to live outside the norms of your community and everything, which is what we see with Frodo, who always felt a little bit, and with oh my god, his uncle, I forgot his name.
Now that Bilbo. You say that,
with Bilbo, that it's this need to like journey and go outside and whatever. And Nori's like that. Nori feels this need for adventure.
But now that you say that, like I actually like Frodo and Bilbo, like we're not looking for an adventure though. So I mean they went out of the Shire because of Gandalf. So they actually.
But I feel like they were a little bit predisposed for it.
True. I mean, but hobbits are described being a little like, in their home, like.
Yeah. Homebodies. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but maybe it's a different species also. No, I mean they're
like cousins. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe she's prompt to adventure.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and you see a lot of the other themes too. Like you see that need to return home. The elves wanting to go back to Valinor, and you see, all the sense of community with the Hardfoots. You already have a romance between an elf and a human, except this time the elf is the man and the human is the woman, and so you have a lot of themes that resonate with Lord of the Rings, but you're doing it from different angles and different perspectives. So it still feels like Lord of the Rings, but it's something new. So I've been really happy with it.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Frodo and Bilbo and Sam I think they were Hollow Heights, I think. and now we're
Oh,
doing.
you're going hard.
You're going hardcore.
I'm just like, oh.
And now we're dealing with Harfoot, so
I'm just like,
Ahí se fue Joanne.
yeah, I'm just like, let
En el
me
viaje
pull out my
genealógico
Return
de
of the
los
King
hobbits.
appendices. Yeah.
I'm in love with these chairs, so I have to look for them.
You have to look for like the genealogical family trees of the hobbits and how they're all related.
Here we go. Okay.
Yeah, the appendices.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Let's go. I don't know.
Because I
Yeah,
think they
that's
do
cool.
have the rights to the appendices. So
Yeah,
they're getting a lot of their stuff from there.
Well, not the appendices. It's Lord of the Rings, so it's part.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, let's see. See, it's very handy. It has a little index in the back.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I'm not gonna do that now because that will be a very boring show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll come better prepared next time. Apparently, for
Because Joanne is on it.
Yeah, Rings of Power discussion. Although I
For
might
the
do the
people that
wiki. I might do the wiki. It's gonna be
The
easier
wiki?
than going through
Yeah.
the book. Yeah.
And for all the hate out there, I mean, Harfoots are, like I said at the beginning, they're brown in skin.
Yeah.
So
Stop hating.
I
Yeah.
don't understand. Yeah, stop hating.
It was
Okay.
always there. Deal with it.
And even if it weren't, so
Deal
what?
with it.
Deal with it. It's just like, so what? Times change, myth changes, stories change and evolve. It's just like Tolkien is dead. So it's just like, at the end of the day, what he wanted, it's irrelevant, you know? It's just like, he's dead. He's dead. Doesn't matter. What he has to say, yeah, it will help inform things, but ultimately, like all stories, you know, the power of stories, that story changes and evolves with the culture.
Story is supposed to be alive.
It's like,
It
yeah,
is.
like now we're taking control of these stories and making them ours and changing them to fit like the world we live in. So it's important that a story never becomes stagnant, because the moment it stagnates, it loses the power that the story has.
Definitely.
So like I
So
I don't care for
Google
gatekeepers.
Wiki says Harfoots were one of the 3 breeds of hobbits, along with Stoors and Fallhides. And then, okay.
Yeah, but it's already
Okay.
saying that there's already diversity within the races that are established, and then you complain about it anyway. It's kind of ridiculous. But anyway, let's talk about the looming threat. Like we've said that, you know, the stranger could be Sauron, but we know that Sauron's around.
Then
We
page
know-
3, I have to look for another book. Never mind.
We know that there's orcs going around. There's this weird infestation with blackness that we already know is crazy. We already saw in that one abandoned fortress that there's a possibility of Sauron already experimenting on how to make the Urukai, because he saw like the really screwed up, you know, dead orc against the wall.
What if it's Snoke? He's just trying to get a clone for Palpatine.
clone
you
for
know?
To join all the fandoms. It's okay.
Why not?
And I forget the woman, her kid. What was his name? Theo?
Theo. Yes. I yeah, it's Theo, because I remember when she said his name, I was just like, oh, that's my ex-partner's dog. Theo.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, there you go.
So I mean, he already has a weapon. And
Which it's awesome. I thanks for reminding me. Like when it was starting to reforge itself, it was like,
yeah,
you know,
like
the
feeding
blades,
from his blood, and
Yeah.
it looks really, really cool.
it looked like a Morgul blade from Fellowship of the Ring. Instead of like
Yeah.
dissolving out, it was like reforming itself from
Yeah.
nether dust or whatever you want to call it. I was like, yes, that's awesome.
It looks very cool. Like I feel there's a lot of potential for that character, because there's like a lot of rage and hate in that kid's heart already, and he could prove to be powerful, end up being one of the kings of men, and possibly a future Nazgul.
We got 5 seasons to find out.
I
That'll be
know,
inter-
but
that'll
it's
be
like so
interesting
cool
because,
that
yeah.
you're seeing like the progression of these characters who maybe start with good intentions.
But that's a good point. Like to those, that little group of men. Which I hate saying men, because there's women there too. Even
I
though
know, but it
that's not
it
what-
is referred
I
to
know
as
that's
the
not what
race
they
of
meant,
men.
but,
I
you
know, yeah.
That's not what whatever.
Mhm.
Whatever. Stop it. Oh, yeah, right. They're like very. I feel sympathetic to them to an extent of them being like upset over their situation because they are paying the price for the mistakes that their forebears did of like allying with Morgoth, or Melkor, if you want to be. Oh, I read the Silmarillion, nerds. But like they're still paying that price, but like now they're in the colonial foot, right? Like you have like this race that's just like there and not letting you do anything, and just
and you can't have a military, and you can't have this. It's very reminiscent of what happened to the Germans after World War I, and then you created the Nazis. So
or any colonial place that the U.S.
I see very dark things happening with these oppressed race of men and what they're gonna do now. With the spreading evil and influence of.
Or time to shine and be like, hey, just let us be ourselves and just like be good on our own accord without you having to watch over us, Dad. We're like,
we're gonna see what happens, because clearly, I mean, the threat is coming from the east, which definitely points to Mordor already.
Which is one of the if we start looking at the text of Lord of the Rings, that's like there's like things that are coded in there. There are inherently like problematic.
Evil.
The east is evil, the west is good. It's just like so like Europe is good, Asia's bad. It's just kind of like which is interesting. Then when you look at the Return of the King, which is the movie that has the most inclusivity in terms of like actors with different skin tones, and all of them are the wild men or the Haradrim, and they all look like Middle Eastern armors and makeup, and it's just like, oh, that's interesting. That coding that you're doing is very purposeful, and obviously you're doing it because they're of the East. But then, the way you're portraying it, obviously, is then problematic because then you're brown bad, East bad, West good, white good. So I think that's why it's important to like start having like also this
conversation about
the conversation is definitely important. That's why we have it in this podcast, but also to like break those stereotypes a little bit and start kind of blending things up when we look at how people look in each group, because then it's just like, okay, so it's not brown people bad. It's there's everyone's mixed everywhere. It's just like they just happen to start breaking those binaries a little bit, so that the show can be a little less problematic. And I'm glad that we're actually seeing that now, because I remember when I was starting to start reading up more about representation and like how things are portrayed in film, and then I rewatched Return of the King with kind of that perspective, I was just like, that I can't not see that now when I look at when I see that. It's just like it's there, intentional or not, it's there.
Yeah, and honestly, people that are complaining that there's too much diversity, if I'm not wrong, so far there's only been one black elf, one black dwarf, one black hobbit. That's it. And like one black human, I'm pretty sure, that you saw for like a second in one of the villages.
Oh, well, yeah, the one with the antlers on his back. Yeah, the one black guy.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of diversity, honestly. Just because you have one black person in every race doesn't mean you're including a lot of diversity. Yeah, just because
one of the elves happens to be Puerto Rican, Afro-Latino, doesn't mean one of the leads that then the main character is all white.
The main characters, right?
With the exception of Ismail, obviously. But
So I'm just saying, if you're complaining about too much diversity, you're not watching the same show I'm watching.
We're watching a different show.
They want all of them to be as white as Galadriel.
Which is kind of troubling, because then it's just like, that's a little Aryan, and what happened when we were advocating for that Nazis. Anyway, I'm not calling you guys, but but I am at the same time. Sorry.
Not sorry.
You gotta call it out, because it's a fine balance, because you don't want to give them that power by elevating like their voice, but we also can't be quiet, because like Galadriel says in that first episode, our complacency allows the darkness to rise. So it's gonna have to strike like a good balance of like calling it out, but also not elevating those voices that would seek to destroy that which we love. So it's important to look at it critically, but also not.
I have a question for you guys. Why does the orc have like a
beard?
No,
it had like a skull mask,
like a skull face, like
it's his helmet. He saw his skull.
I mean, but we've never seen orcs with that kind of helmet.
he thought it was cool. He saw it one day. It's like, hey, that's gonna be a cool accessory.
This looks good on me. I just recently saw the.
Yeah, I think for them, they're not capable of creating art. I would say because they're beings of evil, so they can't make beautiful things. And so he saw skulls. He was like, he can't make it. He'll just wear it. I don't know. I just pulled that out of my ass. I have no
idea. There might be something, about it in the earlier lore, because as far as I know, the original orcs were kind of just mindless drones, and this one seemed to be acting more independently. So I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, there are many stuff in this series that we have to
all episodes come out. Episodes come out on Friday, right? Is that gonna?
Sure.
Actually, yeah.
I'm actually not sure.
Gotta look that up because I'm excited for the next episode, but I don't know when it comes out. All I know is that I'm very, 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 very excited to keep going on this journey through.
I'm definitely invested.
Yeah, and the maps just looks beautiful, right? Oh.
Although I was kind of upset because I mean, why they didn't use the same actress for Galadriel?
Oh well, that's more like one, Kate Blanchett's a little older.
It's Kate Blanchett.
And two, like they're actually.
Oh, she still looks amazing, by the way. Just
I'm not.
She looks amazing.
It's not a slight, but she doesn't look the age, right? But two, it's technically not connected to those Peter Jackson movies. This is it's not a pre. It's weird because I'm saying it's not a prequel, even though it is, but it's not. Because they're not in that Lord of the Rings.
And world. It is all new casting. I mean,
think of it as a reboot. So imagine like someone else had done a new Lord of the Rings, and this is a prequel to that potential Lord of the Rings.
And same goes for this man. Like people are saying that if it's Gandalf, why they didn't use the same actor. But
which I think it's smart because otherwise, like if people will just
you would know immediately who it was. By the way, I mean, if they used either Christopher Lee or Ian McKellen, like you would know, oh, it's Saruman, oh, it's Gandalf for sure from the beginning, which I like the element of mystery that you don't exactly know who it is. And the fact that everywhere you look, he's just referred to like as the stranger or whatever other titles that this character has been given. So I think that's really cool.
True.
So,
and but if it's Gandalf, I wish it could be the same actor.
Yeah, because
but I think that's also one of the reasons why, like, I think it shouldn't be, even though eventually they would need to have Gandalf if they continue the show till who knows what season. I mean, if they do like a sequel to the show, because we know this show is going to be 5 seasons.
5.
But they're going to just compare the performance. It's just like, oh, well, it's not Ian McKellen. And like people won't be able to just see the performance for its own thing because they'll just be comparing it to Ian McKellen, who is just perfect, right? So that's why I think it's unfair for this actor to play that character, because then it's just like you will live in that shadow forever. Even though they should also be unafraid to be like, well, this is our thing, and we need to break those chains and just do whatever we need to. So I don't know. It's complicated. So far. I'm in. If it's Gandalf, I'll accept it. Let's put it that way.
Whoever it is, I'll accept it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not as if I can do anything else.
Of course. No, but it's all good.
Yeah.
I mean, either one works and it's good. And so
yeah, Amazon Prime, if you're listening to us, just remember to invite us to the premiere of season 2.
Yes, thank you, please.
We will keep singing praises. Just invite us to the premiere. That's all we want.
So I think we've covered the first 2 episodes pretty well. I don't know if anybody has some last thoughts about it or what we want to expect for the rest of the season. How many episodes is it, by the way?
6, unfortunately. So we are already
almost halfway there.
Yeah. We are 25% in. Mm-hmm. So yes, so it's gonna be a short ride, but a good ride, from what we can tell so far.
I mean, the episodes are long, so
yes, that's what I'm glad. It's just like 1 hour episodes. Okay, give me my money's worth.
So, what do you think, Joanne? What are you looking forward to this season?
I'm looking forward for anything that comes up. Really,
more hobbits, probably.
I really enjoyed it, and I think it's going places.
Yeah.
Good places.
Good places.
Good places.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that they're already showing that the hobbits have already this kind of written tradition of keeping records that was so important, you know, for Bilbo and then Frodo, like writing all their histories down. And we can already see it from this, like, you know, cousins of the hobbits. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to see how they really represent all these different races. Because like what you were saying was that some of them were delegated, like they became kind of a joke of themselves. And now we have this opportunity to see the dwarves in their full majesty. We get to see the hobbits and, you know, their entire community. And, you know, the dwarves, there's definitely has to be that cooperation if you're really going to show the forging of the rings. So I'm really looking forward to a lot of it. And to see really how Galadriel kind of, you know, calms down, you know, stops being this mellows like vengeful, you know, and then ends up being one of the wisest leaders of the elves.
Lady of Mirkwood,
who I always really loved about Galadriel, the fact that she acknowledged her own darkness, because she kind of, you know, feels out the fact that she would, if she held the One Ring, like she knows that she would be incredibly powerful, but then would succumb to that it
point.
And
to that point, wouldn't it be awesome if she actually does hold the One Ring during
one
this
point?
show? And that's why she knows. It's like, oh crap!
I've already touched it, and I know how corrupted I could become. That'd be cool.
Because that's one thing I do want to see. Is like we always talk about the rings of power, the rings of power, the rings of power. In Lord of the Rings, we're talking about the One Ring, but we never actually see any ring do anything that we're like, okay, well, I get it. Like, yeah, we get to see the One Ring, and Frodo goes into the Shadow Realm and goes and see. But we
know Galadriel has one, Elrond has one, and Gandalf has the third one.
Gandalf has Galadriel. She gives his.
Are
you sure?
No, I'm sure. He got his from the who I think is the one we see saving Galadriel at the end of that episode is the shipwright. I don't remember what his name was.
I'm gonna fact check ourselves. His ring is called Narya.
That one was given.
Also known as the Ring of Fire. Description. You're right. Owner was it?
Yeah.
Oh wait, what? Celebrimbor made it. So yeah. When he gives it
Gil-galad had it in his possession for a while, who's the High King, and then he gave it to Círdan.
Who I have no idea who he is.
Who is known as the Shipwright, who is this really important character in the Silmarillion as well. And he's, I think,
some guy. Okay.
I think that's the dude that saves Galadriel at the end of that episode when she's almost drowning, because you see a guy standing on a ship and you can't see his face.
We know that guy who saves her.
We know the guy who saves her?
It's a man. Who saves? Yeah, whatever. We're not gonna. We're wrapping up the show.
We're wrapping up.
Yeah, everyone's just like, oh my god, I thought you guys were wrapping up.
Although we get to see Galadriel being tempted by the ring on Lord of the Rings, and
I know, but we don't see her go ape shit, you know.
Well, a little bit actually. Like she
kind of transforms in the process of just being near it. Yeah,
we could see the witch side of her. Actually, on that movie,
it's a human called Halbrand. So I lied and I looked it up.
No, Halbrand's the one with her on the board. No,
I'm talking about
but at the very end when they're almost dying and drowning, somebody shows up on a ship, like a large ship. You can't see their face, and like
I see.
Oh yeah. At the end.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And I'm pretty sure.
But I think that's a Numenorian ship. So I think that's gonna be men.
It could be the shipwright, and he would have possession of that ring eventually, and then he's the one that gives it to Gandalf.
That part is true.
Okay.
Because we just looked it up in the wiki. Not because we knew. I had to look it up. I don't fucking know.
Google.com.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. Yeah.
I told you though. I knew.
Hey, you've been wrong.
That.
You've been wrong many times before.
Many times before. Even in pronunciation of things, and I am wrong many times. Yes.
Every once in a while, you will get it right. And this is one of those times. This is one of those times. I give credit where credit's due.
Out of a million things wrong, I'm bound to get something right just by statistics.
Just statistically, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. That's just awesome.
It's called the truth, and I have to acknowledge.
Come on, you can be a nerd just because you enjoy things and not know everything there is to know about it.
Oh, that's true.
Come on.
I do not. Yeah, it's impossible, and I don't want to anyway. It feels like it's too much.
Yeah.
I have other things to do.
Yeah, there's no way I'm gonna learn how to speak or write Elvish.
It would be cool,
Elfish, sure.
but there's no point really to it, right?
But anyway, what are you looking forward to, Goose?
Hey, you know what I said? I actually want to see the Rings of Power show their power,
actually
and see like what happens to them. And now that like I theorized that without any reason, actually see Galadriel. Use the One Ring, and like, I mean, I'm not saying that she is gonna do it, but I think it would be really cool to see if that happened, because then she will be like, oh crap, this is why I know like no one can use it, and because it'll just corrupt even the most pure person except a hobbit.
I'm pretty sure we won't see the rings at all until like
not
the end.
This season. Yeah, no.
Probably towards the end. And Galadriel wouldn't really have access to the One Ring because that one Sauron makes in secret by himself.
That's right.
Yeah.
God damn it.
So
but maybe after like it's revealed that he has it and they're going to war with him, like they have a little skerfuffle and she goes, whoops. Yeah, there's ways. There's ways.
Okay.
Don't worry about the canon, because you know that they're already changing things. Anything's possible.
So are we done for today?
Unfortunately. Until episode 3 at least.
As you can tell, we are very excited about Lords of the Rings. We're already kind of comparing it with Game of Thrones, especially House of Dragon, in a healthy way. Rings of Power is better.
It is. But you can like both.
But you can like both. And until next time, we are Triad of the Force. You can find us anywhere that podcast can be found. Just search for Triad of the Force and you will find us. We have t-shirts. We are coming back next week with more Star Wars stuff, but let us know if you're into Lord of the Rings, House of the Dragon, any other nerd stuff that you want us to talk about. We are Star Wars Plus channel, so we like talking about bunches of things, but we are clearly invested on the Rings of Power, so we will come back.
Yeah, we want more of you to listen to us. So if you like something else, we'll talk about that. So as long as you can boost our numbers. So yeah.
Oh, that is very cynical. Mostly we do this because we have fun. But if it raises viewers,
if we can have fun while also getting more viewers, why not?
Why not? Well, until next time, may the Force be with you.